Elite vs. Freedom is an indie third-person shooter that seemed to be intended as a multiplayer-focused title, but the multiplayer was dead on arrival. There is a single-player campaign which takes place in 7 different locations across the globe, which makes for some nice environmental variety. To call the game a cover-based shooter would be inaccurate because while there is cover to duck behind, it is thinly spread and not easy to use. Instead, the cover you'll be taking in this TPS is more traditional. Think Star Wars Battlefront, where you hide behind natural pieces of scenery and the environment to avoid bullets. The idea is to move between one obstruction and another, constantly bobbing in and out of cover, as opposed to other TPSs where the idea is to glue yourself into a single spot of cover until you wish to switch. There is nothing wrong with either style of game, it is just a noticeable difference in the design. Because the game was primarily built with multiplayer in mind, the campaign levels have an odd progression to them. You move forward, gunning down enemies and reaching new checkpoints as you would in any TPS, but there are a few key differences. Unlike normal TPSs, your progress does not reset when you respawn at a checkpoint. The enemies you killed before dying stay dead. This means you're never in danger of playing a particularly difficult part over and over, but it also means that the game is far easier, especially when you take into account that like most TPSs, the player character does have infinite lives. Another key difference is that just like you, the enemy AI is pushing from the other side of the map, trying to take over checkpoints and reach your side of the level before you reach their side. The enemy AI is playing the same map as you, just in reverse. It's an interesting idea, and it would function much better in multiplayer, but this style of progression, combined with the fact that when you respawn, the enemies don't respawn with you, basically ensures your victory. You can mindlessly run into group after group of enemies, and there's no benefit to being tactical because as long as you kill someone before they kill you, they will stay dead and you maintain the advantage. Unlike the enemy AI, your AI partners do respawn. The enemy AI, and for that matter the friendly AI, also isn't particularly intelligent. They seem to have a real problem with choke points and don't understand how they function, unlike a real person would. So it's very easy to camp out at choke points and destroy them one by one. In other words, even though you can die, the challenge is non-existent. It is very easy to die, as more than a couple of seconds out in the open during a skirmish will ensure that you fall dead. However, the fact that you do die is all but completely ignorable. Your victory is all but assured as soon as you begin the map, unless you are incredibly incompetent and allow the enemy AI to win. If the enemy AI did respawn, the game would certainly be more challenging, but because of how quickly the player dies, it would also be far more frustrating. So simply making the enemies respawn, fixing their AI, or changing any one of these issues would not fix the game as a whole. And in addition to these big, far more noticeable issues, there were many smaller issues, such as the gun and melee balance. The sniper rifle auto-aims, and the auto-aim is so accurate that there's no reason to use any other weapon, as shooting an enemy with a sniper rifle is an instant guaranteed kill. While I generally welcome auto-aim in third-person shooters, I think the sniper rifle should be exempt from auto-aim for obvious balancing reasons. There are also balancing issues with the melee weapons, as one of the guns has a, quote, melee weapon, which is an arcing electrical beam, and that beam can fire through solid objects, essentially making it a short-range projectile that entirely ignores cover, and this allows you to abuse choke points to an absurd degree. Elite vs. Freedom requires so much reworking from the ground up that I wouldn't even know where to begin. The game is far from unplayable. In fact, it's because of its flaws that it is so playable, because the game is all but entirely mindless. In fact, I reckon that you could play it entirely mindlessly if that was your inclination. There is no benefit to playing strategically, and if you do play strategically, you will break what little surviving design the game has very quickly. Even though Elite vs. Freedom is an abject failure in game design, it is very difficult to say it is unrecommended, or even call it difficult to play, or tell you not to purchase it, because it is very easy to play, and it is mindless. So if you're up for mindlessly shooting a lot of men, then it does function quite well for that purpose. This is an odd case where a game is so broken in a player's favor that it would be almost impossible to lose unless you were actively trying. I personally find it a little depressing that I have to give the game half a recommendation because it is simply mindless fun, even though the design is broken beyond all repair. The only way to make the game challenging would be to do a no-death run of every level, and even then you still might not find it stimulating enough. To be more concise, Elite vs. Freedom is broken, and you should only play it if you want to hold down the trigger button.